You're tuning into the Active Mom Podcast with physical therapist, Dr. Carrie Pagliano, a real mom's guide to all things postpartum return to workouts after baby. If you're a postpartum mom, coach, trainer, or physical therapist looking for answers on how to get back to running, CrossFit, yoga, Pilates, HIIT, you name it, without the fear of pelvic floor issues or doing something wrong, this is the podcast for you. Let's start the show. All right. I love a good Instagram friendship, and some of my favorite people, my favorite friends are people that I have never met in real life. And one of them goes by Burpees and Burp Claws on Instagram. Tricia's actually a pelvic floor physical therapist. I don't even know when we started talking, but I am just constantly inspired by the fact that she's up at 0 dark 30, navigating 3 small children, constantly doing these crazy HIIT workouts. Navigate, like, she just ran a 50K ultra and like giving, dinner recipes. So I was like, you know what? We just need to hang out and talk and catch up. So burpees and burp. I can't get that out of my mouth. It's like too many burps. Too many burps.
Isn't it?
Oh, welcome to the Active Mom Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I was just so excited to come on and hang out with you because I don't remember how long we've been.
I don't know either. And we're both in the same state, which is also weird. People don't realize Virginia is like a really big state. Like Northern Virginia might as well be its own state, quite honestly.
That's so true. Yeah. And next time I come to DC, I'll definitely hit you up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. She was just up here for like 30 seconds and didn't say hi, but whatever. I digress. Let's start with PT stuff, because you've been a PT for how long?
Oh gosh. So this was a second career for me. So I've been a PT. It'll be 10 years. Is that right? Yeah, 10 years. 10 years. 10 years last year, I think.
And why?
and why?
Why do people go like to PT for a second career? Because it's not like an easy jump. Like there's a lot of school and stuff like that. So
yeah. So undergrad, I went the pre-med route. And by the time I was done, I was done. I was just so burnt out. And PT was in the back of my head. I had a really great anatomy and physiology professor in undergrad who was a PT. And so like she just really got that spark and kind of lit that fire, like, hey, this is something you should look into. But by the time I graduated, I was just so burnt out.
Did you take the MCATs or anything, or no?
No, I didn't even, I knew, I was like, and I had been talking to people I knew who were in the medical profession. They're like, don't do it. So I'm like, okay.
So funny backstory. I actually took the MCATs.
Oh, you did?
After I became a PT, I was like, this sucks. Cause all it was like, and I'd only been out like a year and a half or something. It was like all modalities where I worked. It was just, it wasn't critical thinking. It was literally like, let's do shortwave diathermy. Let's do heat packs. Let's do ultrasound. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. Literally went back to school to get the full year of organic chemistry, sat for my MCATs. And then I was like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I'm out. Wait, now what? What do I actually have to be a PT now?
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Yeah. And I knew like I wasn't gung-ho about it. And so the doctors that I knew that were like, if you aren't positive, like why would you put yourself through this? So I'm glad that I had that piece of advice. But and I grew up in Massachusetts. My family moved to Virginia while I was in college, went to school down in Boca, Lynn University, small school in Florida. Yeah. So when I graduated, I moved to Virginia where they were, and worked as a personal trainer for a little over a year, and then got into sales actually, with a few startup companies, medical sales. So it was good. Like, of course, this guy's going to blow leaves right behind me right now.
Oh, inevitably I'll have the trash can, but it's all good. It's all
good. Which was good. Like, it was just good life lessons for me in dealing with people. And I was so young. I mean, I was straight out of college pretty much, into these medical conventions that put me way out of my comfort zone. Worked in sales for a couple of years. And then I was like, this is not my thing. And the PT part like kept coming back to me. And I've been a runner for a while. I was in and out of PT myself. And I was like, this is where I need to be. So as I was working, I only had a couple credits, like psych credits or something I needed to take to go back. Applied to VCU, did not get in the first year. And they're like, the only reason you didn't get in is you needed more volunteer hours in like different settings. We like to see, and I was like, seriously. So, I was magna cum laude undergrad. Like I had good grades. I was like, there's no reason I couldn't.
You want this.
Right. You want me.
Oh
So anyways, I got in the following year, but I think the background of it is at that time, like most of us, I was like, I'm an athlete. I want to work with athletes,
Yeah, exactly. We all think we're going to work with like Olympians and,
Yes.
and not to like toot your horn, but like you're not like a slow person either. Like, what were you telling me your cherry blossom
Oh,
numbers the other day? And I don't know how long ago that was. She's doing like, sub 7-minute miles for her cherry blossom 10 miler. And I was like, oh, I don't even think I did that in high school.
thanks.
So you were not you weren't like a slowpoke. So
Yeah. And I started running marathons in college, which, is not typical college.
why did you do that? How did
Um,
you have time?
That's a really great question. And I think that kind of is like how I work my life now. It's like the less time I have, the more I pack into it, which isn't,
Yeah.
might not be the best way to do life, but
It's an
it's how
interesting strategy.
right. I feel like I just function better with
Mhm.
on higher levels of chaos. I don't know. Um,
That could explain. Continue. And this has now become your psych session. We're analyzing why you do
it. But I feel like as I was going through clinical rotations in PT school, I just saw, I was like, wow, like there's so much more than just sports and athletes. And in the end, like they ended up being some of my least favorite people to treat.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, we are awful patients ourselves. So,
Yeah, especially
uh,
medical professionals. We are we are pretty
yeah,
bad.
right, yeah. Um, yeah,
How
so
did
that's kind of how I got into it. And then
how'd you make the leap to like pelvic stuff? Is that after you
right.
had kids or?
That was after I had kids. Like, I remember them glazing over women's health and the pelvic floor in PT
Mm-mm.
school, and I
Mhm.
remember thinking, "Hell no. Like,
Yeah.
why on earth would I wanna deal with this?" And this was
Mhm.
before I had kids. But then after I had my first, who will be 9 in December, um, I like, after that 6-week follow-up, and they're like, "Okay, go ahead. You're good to go." I mean,
Yeah.
I literally had my stroller packed in the back seat of my car with the baby at 6 weeks because I was, like, waiting for that. Like, everyone says,
Right.
"Oh," 'cause I had no idea.
Right.
Parked the car, put the baby straight into the stroller and started running. And then, like, I had to stop and pee behind a bush, like, a mile in, and I was like, "This can't be right." So I started kind of doing my own research and really just seeing like, wow, there's such a lack of education and just like
Yeah.
we're just kind of fed to the wolves here.
Yep.
And that's what kind of got my wheels turning as far as the pelvic floor stuff goes.
Yeah.
Um, and it was really during the pandemic. So I worked in outpatient orthopedics and then found out I was pregnant in March of 2020.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Yes. Or February of 2020. It was like I was very newly pregnant and then the world shut down. So
Yeah.
we made the decision, like at that point, we didn't really know the implications of COVID and pregnancy. And
Mhm.
I was working all sorts of close to people. So I stopped working and
Yeah.
immediately went through Sarah Duvall's
Okay.
yes course. So that was kind of like my gateway into prenatal postpartum, and then went through Brianna Battle's course
Yep.
and then Herman and Wallace pelvic floor courses. So,
Which everybody would be like, "Oh, you went backwards." I would disagree and say you went the right way.
like, and even when I was in the Herman and Wallace classes,
Mhm.
there was so much that, and just from like, because I had started working with clients more from the exercise point of view,
Yeah.
prenatal and postpartum, that people were clueless about just exercise and pregnancy and postpartum.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And I was so glad that I went that direction.
Right. Well,
Um,
and that's the thing that's so funny historically. And again, this isn't like ancient history. This is, recent for you that people don't realize that they were just these total separate entities was orthopedics and pelvic floor. And there's still people that truly believe this in our profession is that if you are not doing internal, and that's what, for those of you that don't know, Herman& Wallace is a education company that they provide education, which includes internal assessment. There's still providers that have like, if you don't do internal work, you're not a pelvic floor PT. And I'm like, first of all, I don't care.
right.
Second of all, the longer I've been doing this, so 25 years now, the less internal I do. But again, I also got my orthopedic training first. So for people that have like, I feel like people that have other background, which is why I love your story where you got to PT as a second career. I feel like you have so much more to give to it. Like when I came out as a new grad PT, I didn't know freaking anything. Like
Yeah.
I didn't. And I think if you come into it with, if you come into pelvic PT with neuro background, with orthopedic background, even just having your own kid background, like it just makes it meatier. You just understand things in a different way. You're not like this tunnel, this vagina, like everything has to be here. You're like, no, I see this whole thing as a system.
Yes.
And so it really is interesting to me, having worked in academia and run a residency where we get new grads that want to go straight into pelvic without other things. And I just find it curious, like, because I
Yeah.
wouldn't have done it.
No
But
way. Yeah, and
it
like you said, like, it gives you a bigger appreciation of the whole
mhm,
body because that's, like, where my brain initially goes is orthopedic
right,
before
exactly. Yeah,
anything.
exactly. But
Uh,
isn't it crazy to think that like that wasn't a thing?
right.
Like
Yeah, that
I
is crazy.
remember they taught us to like screen the spine and screen the pelvis, but other than like a few like muscle energy techniques, like you didn't learn
Right.
anything else. So if you didn't have an orthopedic background, you didn't know you're like, great, now I have this, but I don't know how to treat it or what to do with it. Can you imagine?
You're like, "This is just a vagina." Like,
Yeah.
this is
I
not
didn't get one day, and I'm so glad I wasn't the only one. I was just like, it really is just orthopedics warm dark place. Like,
I love it.
like no, and it was novel at the time. And now, of course, that we're all interconnected. I realized that I wasn't the only one that thought that, which is really cool. You don't feel like an idiot, but like
Right.
that wasn't that long ago. I'm not that freaking old. Like,
No, you're not. And it is amazing, even like since over the past couple years, there's just so many advances and so
yeah,
many new
yeah.
and so much more acceptance around,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, nobody even knew pelvic floor therapy
No,
existed. I mean,
yeah.
now it's like so much more common, which is wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good. It's definitely good.
Yeah.
But I do think, and this is where I would love your take. So you did a poll in your stories this week talking about how you exercise with interruptions from your kids. And your kids, God love you, get up at weird freaking hours. Like
Yeah.
you get up at 4, they want to get up at 3. Like they want to one up you. And so how do people navigate that? And so that might have seemed like it's out of left field, but my question is, I see all the time PTs, doesn't have to be pelvic floor, giving moms with a couple of kids like 17 different exercises. And then they come back
Mhm.
2 weeks later and they literally write, or if I'm reaching out to them, they're like, oh, well, they were non-compliant. And then they were given a whole nother set of 17 exercises and not told to discharge the first set. And then like mom stops coming because it's just not helping. Like, can you just, I don't know, share a day in the life of a typical mom with 3 kids just so we can have a, I don't know, baseline understanding of what a freaking shit show it is?
Oh, it's bullshit. I mean, do you want me to start at midnight last night?
Yeah.
Like,
Why don't we just take today as a random example?
yeah, here's a random example, which is usually the norm. My youngest is a terrible sleeper. My oldest was a terrible sleeper. So my kids are 8, 6, and almost 4.
Oh my God.
But last night, my youngest, we call her Cat 5 Kaylin. I mean, she is literally just a walking, talking hurricane.
Oh my gosh.
So I wake up, the creepy kid just hanging out next to your bed. Like, you don't know how long they've been there. You don't know how long they've been looking at you. Just open my eyes, like, oh my God, there you are. She's
Mhm.
like, I peed through everything. I'm all wet. It's like, oh God. So sure enough, peed through her clothes, through her sheets, through the mattress protector, the comforter, everything. So I'm doing laundry at midnight last night.
And how long had you been asleep
Oh, 2 hours. I think it was like right before 10. I went to bed.
so at 2 hours, I'm assuming that you're entering a deep, restful sleep, and
Oh,
then you wake up and have like, because this still happens to me. There is a rule in my house that if you come in and want something from me within like the first hour that I've gone to sleep, like the answer is
yeah.
no. Like whatever I say to you, it doesn't count because I'm probably going to be pretty mean.
Right. Mom, the house is on fire. No.
No, it's not. I'm go
No.
back to bed.
Right.
I'm going to sleep because you're
Yes.
not within your right mind. Okay.
No. No. So I was like, "Yo, what is going on? Like, what do you mean?" Like, it took
Yeah.
a yeah, it takes a second for like your brain
Mhm.
process what's going on.
Mhm.
So got her settled. By this time it's like 12:30.
Mhm.
Laundry's going, sheets are changed, fall back asleep. 2:30 a.m. She comes in again, wet the bed again. And same thing, like through everything. And now there's no mattress protector on the mattress. So she's straight through the mattress. I was like, how, what did you go downstairs and like guzzle a gallon of water in between, like in the past 2 hours? Like what?
Is
So
she constipated?
you know what? She probably is. Now that you
Honestly,
say
that's the bedwetting thing. So, like, we're gonna go into PT for a second. So I actually
that.
went to learn about pediatric pelvic floor because my oldest, sorry, honey, had bedwetting issues up until like age 6, 7, 8, and it's chronic constipation.
I bet she is my only child that has ever had constipation
Yes,
issues.
you take care of the constipation, and we can go into this deeper offline, but, like, you
Yeah.
take care of the constipipation, you will take care of the bedwetting.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that needs to
That's my
happen.
peds tip for today.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll load her up with all sorts of stuff when she
Wait,
gets.
I will give you some ideas after we get offline.
Okay. All right. Okay. So then 2:30 at that point, I'm like, well, you know what? I should just get up. Like
Oh my god.
I'm awake. Like there's no way I'm falling back asleep again. And thank God I did. I fell back asleep until 4:30. So it wasn't the most sleep last night, but I I was going to drop the kids off at school and then go for a run. And I was like, I'm awake. I might have time before they wake up. I don't know.
Mhm,
So I got on the treadmill, knocked it out. And then my middle ended up being homesick with a fever today. So I'm
mhm.
glad that I just got it done.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so like now all three are in full-time school when they're not sick. And so the mornings are complete chaos. Like as soon
Mhm.
as I finish running, I'm hitting the ground, literally running, getting the
Yeah,
three kids ready to get out the door. And yeah, it's nuts. I
yeah.
mean,
And then you get, like, a little reprieve, and people that
yeah,
think the school day is long, y'all can
isn't
suck it because it's not.
yeah, yeah,
What time do you put the chauffeur hat back on to collect them all and bring them home?
3:45.
Okay.
So they're all gone at 9:30 and then 3:45. And this is the first year that I've had them all in. Like last year, my youngest was only in part-time daycare 6 hours a week. So I
Ooh,
had like just under 3 hours, 2 days. And that was, I mean, talk about
that's not
time
enough.
flying by. That was not enough.
Yeah.
So this is nice now. And I do virtual PT primarily now, but I'm going back into a clinic setting at the end of October.
Yeah.
So even now I'm like stressing out, like, oh my gosh, like now I have to get myself ready to be actually presentable
Right?
to the world and all of them and out the door by 7 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's always a challenge.
Yeah.
But to
No, I
fit in 17 exercises for a home exercise, I mean, there's no way. That's
no.
like
No.
ridiculous.
And have you gone down the rabbit hole yet? I think you're just starting into it of the after school activities kind of chaos, like
Yeah, oh yeah,
with
we're
sports
there.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that kinda starts at, like, I feel like it starts at almost like 3, 4, which is way too early, but
right. My youngest does soccer through school, thank God.
okay.
My middle is in soccer, so she has one practice a week, game on the weekends, and my oldest is in travel, so he's two practices a
Mm.
week, game on the weekend. So it's something pretty much
Yep.
every night.
Every night. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing where it's like, I hate the whole non-compliance word because it implies that we don't want to do what we're
Right.
doing, and it's like anytime I have somebody that like no more than 3 exercises, and if you come back and you're like, I always feel bad because the first thing people do is they either, apologize because they didn't shave their legs. Trust me, I don't care. Or they apologize because they didn't get to their exercises. And so that one, I always dig deeper. I'm like, so what were the barriers? And I'm not asking to accuse. I'm not asking. Like, I seriously want to know so that I can help you figure it out.
Right.
And that's one of those things where, like, I know people are like, oh, we'll just get up early. You're like, okay, I am, but someone gets up with me or someone gets up before me, or like it's just I think until you're in that mix, it's really easy to dole out kind of blasé advice. But
Right.
like just getting in the weeds on, okay, where can we make it so easy? And I think it was, oh crap, what was his name? James Clear that did the whole habit stacking thing. We had him on a couple years ago, and I'm like, you thought you wrote a business book? It was really a parenting book. Um, about what are you going to do first when you get out of bed, and then like you get out of bed, you go pee, and then immediately go to like your mat or something like that, have your clothes laid out, and then what are you going to do immediately after that, and what are you going to do if you have a toddler that comes down in the middle of it? Do they have an iPad there? Do they have this, that, whatever? Like if you like plan ahead for someone to throw a grenade on you, then
Yeah,
you're pleasantly surprised if it doesn't happen.
exactly. And that's my approach.
Yeah, you
I
have
just
to, because it's
yeah,
gonna happen. Yeah.
right. And if you don't plan for that, then it's 10 times more irritating and
Yeah.
you get flustered and yeah.
Exactly. And that doesn't go away. Like my kids are older, mine are middle school, so 6th and 8th. But still, like, last week my daughter got her COVID vaccine and her flu shot on a Tuesday and woke up with a huge fever on Wednesday morning. And I knew she was fine. I wasn't worried, but I'm like, okay, you're definitely not going to school. So what does that
Right.
mean now? Like, okay, do we
Exactly.
need to spend extra time doing this or that or whatever? Like it's always something, or somebody's got an orthodontist appointment or, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's something.
Always, always. Yeah, and so, yeah, when you're right, when you expect like, "Oh, today's gonna be such a shit show every day," then when it's not, it's like, wow, it's like I went to the spa.
Right? Yeah, you're like,
It's
"Okay, I don't have it to heat my coffee up more than, like, 3 times. It's a good day." Like
yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many times I'll find my coffee just in the microwave at, like,
yeah.
3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like,
Well,
"Oh,
that's
there it
that's
is."
one of the conversations, I don't know if you have this with your clients, but, like, if I see them in postpartum, the conversation that always gets missed is the one where they're transitioning back to work. And
Mhm.
my first question, like my 2 questions are, what do you want to get back to? And what does your childcare situation look like? And I heard some awful stat yesterday that in the United States, like the inflation on childcare costs is like
It's crazy.
astronomical. It's insane. And it's so hard to find adequate childcare. So I'm like, do you know what your childcare looks like? And do you have the flexibility or privilege to be able to include your workout time in the time that your child is in
Yes.
care? Because if you can, trust me, you're not like, and this is what I did with my oldest, and it was so stupid. Um, like I finished work at 3 and I
Mhm.
had the nanny leave at 3:30. I was like, what the frick was wrong with me? And then I got my head out of my butt basically. And then I was like, well, why don't you just stay till 5?
Yeah,
And maybe I'll go to Target and maybe I'll go to walk. And like
right.
going to Target alone is like this like spiritual experience.
Oh, it really is. Yes, like the heavens just open up as soon as you
Right?
walk in. Yeah.
But is that
Doing
something
anything.
that you come up with, like, when you talk to people? Because that transition's really hard because you've had all
Mhm.
this time to yourself, and then you go to work, and, of course, everybody sees you, and they wanna talk to you, and now everybody's being called back to work as opposed to home, and it's like a whole
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that is hard. I'm always very sensitive to that because, yeah, I went, with the exception of my 3rd, wor I've been home since COVID.
Mhm.
With the first 2, I went straight back into I worked 3 or 4 10-hour days, and my commute was an hour each way.
Yeah.
Um, and my husband was traveling internationally weeks at a time. So it was a lot on my plate. And I
Yeah.
should have absolutely did what you did, but I never did. Like, no, because I
Yeah.
had that guilt of
Yeah.
I'm gonna work all day. I need to get my kids as quickly as possible. Um,
Exactly, and I had this guilt, like, if I wasn't working, I shouldn't be paying somebody to take care of my kids,
right. Which is
and I
totally
don't know where that came from.
yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but I'm glad I kinda had the privilege to get over it,
Yeah.
because it made a world of difference, and it like,
Mhm.
I talk about hats with people a lot, and I would love your perspective on this, is, like, how do you make sure that, like, you're present and you can, like, not snap your kid's head off when they interrupt you in a workout, but at the same time turn on switch hats and then, like, be professional or, like, attend to, something that doesn't have anything to do with your kids? Like, how do you kinda do that switch?
It's a really good question. I think just a lot of practice. Um,
A lot of interruptions.
a lot of interruptions, yeah, and also, I'm one of 7 kids, so
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
yeah, so
You're
I'm the oldest. So
oh,
there's 12 years between me and the 7. So I think part of, like, how I can function now in so many different areas
wow.
is because I grew up with so many different people and so many different personalities, and there was always something going on.
Yeah,
Um, and so for me, it's like it's very easy for me to switch between, like, crazy workout mode to mom mode to
yeah,
business mode to friend it's
You grew up in the chaos.
I grew up in the chaos. Yeah. Just only continuing.
Like delineation. I'm like, and now I will swap hats.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, okay, the walk home from my office to the house, or the walk to go pick up a kid from school, or something like that, where I'm
Getting
like,
a
okay,
break.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's important too.
I
To have
didn't have, there weren't 7 of us, there was only 3.
and then three is a lot. I don't I'm like, I can't imagine having 4 more than I do right now.
Mm-mm,
Oof.
mm-mm. No, but I feel like that's something that, like, when you have kids, you don't really think about that.
Right.
Is like, how do you make those transitions work? How do you, make sure that you're, taking care of yourself? And it's that whole, like, if mom takes care of herself, then she'll be able to be, because you can't function on empty.
No. Right. And I think I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Sure. Just
How
yeah.
so?
Yeah, with my first especially, I think I got I take that back. We just with different lives. I'm like, I had a rough couple of years. Um, just by like, yeah, never allowing myself or never really having the opportunity to have that aside from a workout, which most of the time was with my kids up
Yeah.
until, more recently. I never really had that time for just myself where I could like,
Yeah.
it was always like throw one hat on to the
Yeah.
next,
Yeah.
and never getting a break to hang that hat up and just take a breath.
Yep.
So it is, and it's so much easier said than done too, because I don't know how or where I would have had that time up to
Yeah.
this year because I was always with kids. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
24.
I think that looks different for different people, because, like, I think you and I were kind of fairly similar in that, like, we never were, like, all in one place or another. Like, I've worked a couple days a week when I was at the hospital when the kids were little, and that was fantastic, and then I would be home a couple days a week. Since I've
Yeah.
started, my practice, you're kinda working all the time anyway. It's just varying degrees of what it is you're doing versus, seeing a patient or whatnot.
Yeah.
But, like, there's never, like, a clean balance. I mean, if you're working full time, you feel like you're missing out on your kid stuff. If you're home all the time, you feel like you're missing out on, like, whatever your
Right.
profession was. Like, there's always, like, I don't think there's a sweet spot. I don't think you talk to
No.
anybody that's in any one of those categories and you're like, "Yeah, this is the bomb. I've got this." Like,
Yeah. I
it
agree.
just isn't. Yeah.
No. And I don't think there's really a such thing as balance when
Mm-mm.
it comes to
No.
community.
You're like, "Nope."
No, it's just really not. Someday I maybe like over a grand, like maybe over a month. I don't know. I don't know. I think so. It's either like this way or this way. It's
Right.
not ever in the middle.
But I think that was I think one of the first things that maybe, like, caught my eye with you is you would post these, like, I don't know what they are. They're like insanity workouts or something. Like,
Yeah.
what you're you remind me of, like, back in the day, like, when I was first, so, like, mid-90s, everybody was into, like, Zumba and, like, step aerobics and all that kinda stuff, but I look at how you do it, and you do it, like, next freaking level. Like, you can jump like a gazelle, and I'm so jealous, because I feel very kind of, like, molassesy if I were to stand next to you, and I was like, and I think honestly that's why you can be like, "Yeah, okay, I just did a 50K and I'm totally fine." Because I really believe that there's something to be said about having agility training and being able to
Sure.
do plyometric-y stuff. Like, I truly believe that, and that's so
Yeah.
much of what you do. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. When after I had my son, so prior to that, all I did was run, like very minimal strength training.
Because
Was
that's what we did. Yeah,
right.
that's what we did
Oh,
back then. Yeah.
yeah. I just ran. If I,
Mhm.
that's miles and miles. Had a lot of injuries. And then when I had him, I knew that I wouldn't have the flexibility to run like that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started doing insanity.
So it
And
really is called insanity.
oh
Like, I'm
yeah,
not okay, I thought I was making that up. Like,
right. No. Yeah, so Shaun T is the trainer
yeah,
in the
okay.
insanity workouts.
Yeah.
So I got into the whole beach body deal, and the home workouts became my major outlet because running wasn't what it could be anymore. Like I would do a lot of stroller running, but I didn't have the opportunity to run by myself a lot. So I
Yeah.
was like, I need something. So I started doing the at-home workouts, and fell in love with all of the hit and jumping. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of decent at this.
Yeah, you are.
Right? Like this is, when you're
He's a gazelle.
and I just love that, just that, like, that feeling of death, like the heart racing, pounding. I kind of live for that, like, adrenaline rush, I guess. Like, let's see how I
I'm
can.
laughing because like I feel like there's a lot of things we connect on, and this is not one of them. I'm
No,
inspired by it. Do not get me wrong. I wish I had that capacity. Like, and I enjoy a good feeling of death every once in a while, but like it wasn't intentional.
it's
It
fair.
was an
It's fair
after the
enough.
fact kind of thing. Like,
Right,
oh, that was
right.
great.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a fair point.
Okay. All right.
Um, yeah, it's not often I find people that are like, yes, I know that. I love that feeling too.
Mhm.
Um, but and then I realized too, like when I was able to get back into more running, it helped
Oh
so
yeah.
much. And
Yep.
even with now that I've gotten more into the trail running and ultra, um, gosh, like jumping over roots and rocks and like
No,
all
me
the
too.
agility stuff helped so much.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was the part where I was really like, okay, first of all, and you know this in public health, like one, not a lot of public providers have great exercise background. And then two, not a lot are, can specialize in running, but then even in running just itself, public stuff aside, we're just now getting like good strength training and resistance training and getting people to do that. And I feel like moms, again, just like you and I, we could run and just do running until we had kids. And then we're like, oh crap, now we got to do this other stuff
Yeah.
because that's what's going to mean longevity for you.
Mhm.
But then how do you find time to do all these things? But like the stuff that you post is just like so simple. And I
Right.
feel like so I've got a plan for you now. Is you need to make like the 10-minute mom workout like
Yeah.
water down insanity so I don't die because I probably
Okay.
I won't come back, but
I will
maybe
revive
just
you.
maybe just a hint of death, but not like full straight on death. But like
Yes.
you need
Okay.
to like
That's
gradual
you.
graded exposure because moms need more impact one because it's great for our
Right.
bones, it's great for our tendons, it's great for our pelvic floor to teach it more to be like a dimmer switch instead of an on-off switch. Like
Yep.
we need more impact sooner in our moms. And I think you're just fun enough that you could make us like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, like with my clients now, like if they give me any hint of like, oh, I'd be up for like a little of that. I'm like, oh hell
Mhm.
yes. Like it's on.
Mhm.
And
Well, that's right. I think we're gonna have to put the reins on and be like, okay, like some of us are. It takes us a little while to warm
yeah.
up.
And I
we're,
appreciate that. Like I'm not
we're
on a mission to kill
we're
everybody.
not ready for the push-up challenge yet. Like
No,
I'd like the
soon.
jumping push-ups. Like I'm not there yet. So um
It's only a matter of time.
no, I know, and I appreciate that, but like we're warming up.
Yeah.
No, but I think
Awesome.
it's such a great example of like things that historically we've kind of almost like poo-pooed is, these at home workout videos from like the 90s and 2000s and stuff are actually really freaking good to help
Amazing. Right.
train a lot of things that those of us that are done having kids and diving into perimenopause and menopause, like we need more impact in our life also so that we can jump over, rocks and roots and things like that doing ultra marathons, but so it reduces our fall risk when we get old and we don't fall and break a hip and end up dead. Um,
Yes.
so there's a long-term vision on the insanity as well. So
Right. Yeah. And too, it's like all like the high intensity stuff. It doesn't have
Mhm.
to take that long to
Right.
die and then,
Yes.
get the
Yes.
benefits of it.
I'm sitting here thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into?
Yeah, I love it.
Like you're
My
plotting as we speak.
Oh,
You are
definitely. My
plotting
goodness.
as we speak. Okay. So we've established this is your jam. How do you get up at 0 dark 30, do insanity, get interrupted 17 million times, and then get through the day with 3 kids, all the things that you have to do and have energy to do all of that? Because I
Somebody
think the typical mom is going to be like, I can't do that. I don't have enough
Right.
energy. How does that happen for you?
Yeah. I think mindset plays a big role in this because I'm asked this question a lot.
Yeah.
And granted, I think I just naturally have a little bit more energy than maybe the average person. I've kind of been like that my whole life. Like my kids waking up at these times is actually karma because I've always been a morning person myself. But I just like, obviously there are days where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm tired. Like it's been raining, I feel like for a couple days, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, this weather like
Yep.
drags me down. But overall, I never really feel like dragging and tired. And I think the exercise does help with that too. So a lot of women were like, "Oh, I don't have the energy to work out." It's like, well, if you get into a rhythm of it and you make it a habit, you probably find you'll have more energy just from moving your body and getting those feel good endorphins. And I feel like sometimes, a body in motion stays in motion. That's kind of me.
Yeah.
And then
No,
when I have the opportunity at the end of the day to crash for a
yeah.
couple hours before somebody pees the bed, like I'm done. It's it's lights out
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. No, but I think that the whole, like, the less decisions that you're making, like, it's just an assumption that you are up at this time and you do these things and you know what workout you're gonna do, like, and
Right.
and that's something I talk to my patients about a lot. I'm like, "We have to get it to the point that you're not wasting brain cells on it." And I
Mhm.
think people understand it in, like, in the concept of, like, I don't know, like Zuckerberg wears the same thing every day, or like the Apple guy that I can't remember his name, like wearing the same thing every day, eating the same thing, like all that kind of stuff. You can still do that with working out too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I tell moms. I'm like, if you're still in that first 6 weeks period of time, I want you, when you're nursing and you're doing the scroll, I want you to start looking for local mommy baby workout groups. Like, or if you're going to do a video at home, who resonates with you? If you've been doing Beachbody, great. Let's go do Beachbody, but we'll teach you, some strategies to overlay on that because we know you already do that. Like, I
Right.
feel like it's 99% of the battle is like getting those habits or those things set up that you don't have to waste brain cells on it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly, yeah, and finding things that you enjoy, because I feel like a lot of people will just be like, "Oh, everyone's doing Peloton, like, that's what I need to do," but if you don't enjoy getting on a bike, like,
exactly.
it's not going to last, so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great tip for people
Yeah.
during those first few weeks when all you're doing is, sitting around nursing your baby,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
hmm,
but I
plan
also
ahead.
think too, like, I mean, I think it's also important to know, you need to outsmart yourself. Like you knew, okay, I'm not going to be able to get out to run. I need to do something else or I'm going to lose my mind. So
Yes,
what is it that I can do that's really easy for me to set up? I have a space for all of that. I'm going to do that. Because I can't leave the house because that's kind of a bad thing to leave your children sleeping when they're, small and go leave the
right.
house and be able to
It
just
happened
like,
recently.
just like
Right.
minor little things like that. But like
Yeah,
you kind of have to outsmart yourself and like, all right, well, if that's what I'm going to have to do, how do I set it up so that it happens? Like, what time do I need to go to bed? And understanding I'm going to get
yes.
interrupted and woken up for all this other stuff. Like you have to outsmart
You
yourself.
do. Yeah. Yeah, you have to have, like, a plan and then a backup plan,
Mhm.
and then a plan for the backup plan. But and
Mhm.
2, yeah, when I get up early and do these work, I don't even think about it anymore. Like, to your
Right.
comment,
Yep.
it's just what I never have to have the battle of, like, "Oh, do I
Mhm.
really wanna do it?" It's just
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
that took a while. I mean, I'm 41 years old. I've been working out since I was in, like, middle school, so
Yeah. But
it
you know
was
what's funny though is like people assume that because we're physical therapists, we like to work out, right?
right.
Um, I am actually not great at making myself like drop my own programming or do my own workout or things like that. I
Right.
mean, like the hodgepodge that happened in like the first year and a half of lockdown was just, like laughable. I did get a lot of equipment. That was great. That's now all here at the clinic.
Yes.
But I was like, great, I got all that. But no, I forget when, maybe it was when my youngest was 3 and she was finally like in preschool for more than a hot second. I was like, I need to go somewhere and be told what to do.
Right.
Um, and that was really hard because I don't like being told what to do. My husband would totally agree with me there. And I no, but I think when you go into a class and you have some knowledge about things and people tell you to do stuff and maybe sometimes it isn't quite right, like
Right.
it's really easy to latch on that and let it become a barrier. And I had to be just like, all right, I'm just here to like shut my PT brain off and I'm
Yeah.
just here to work.
Mhm.
And that was a big shift for me. So I can be told what to do in certain contexts now.
Yep. Same.
Um, but
Same.
like, I guess you're probably not at the point where you don't have enough kid freedom yet where you can be like, hey, I'm going to go to a class.
I know. No, not quite yet, but I'm the same way in that I really enjoy programming
Mhm.
workouts and exercises for other people and
Yep.
giving, PT home exercise programs. I love doing that, but I don't do
Yeah.
it for myself because I
No.
yeah, I just don't, I want to be able to enjoy it. And I don't, like you said, I want to be able to turn my brain off.
Yep.
So if someone else will tell me like, hey, you need to do this, and this week, like that's great.
Yeah. Did
Or
you
videos.
did you get a coach for your ultra?
I had a friend who is very well versed in the ultra world,
Got it.
give me plans. Yeah.
That's
Which,
nice.
because I'm like, yeah, I'll do whatever. If you give me
Right.
instructions or like say, hey, you need to run this many miles,
Right.
I will do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that for myself.
No, no, it's a lot. It's too much brain power if you can
It
delegate
is.
that out.
Yeah.
What, just out of curiosity, because you did a 50K, what was your kind of weekly mileage, just out of curiosity?
Ooh, I ran a lot. I
Yeah.
hit 2 70+ mile weeks.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was averaging between 50 and 70
Yeah.
um, from the spring through September 7th was
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. It was a lot.
Did you get injured at all or no?
Knock on wood, no, never did.
I think that's totally a testament to all the other things that you do. It
I
has to
think
be.
so, yeah,
It has
yeah,
to be.
and I started lifting a lot more than I ever had,
Yep.
like, as my mileage got higher, it dropped back, like, now I'm doing, like, 2 strength workouts a week, and I
Mhm.
dialed back a lot on the HIIT stuff
Yeah.
because it was just, I mean,
It's
I
too
can't
much.
do
Yeah.
that. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't have enough time. 70 mile a weekend. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I could make the time, right?
No,
But
no, but it's tricky though. Like I just did a post this morning because I think I've talked about like the last year I kind of like smacked into the wall of menopause about a year ago. And so that's a lot of the algorithm that I spend time in trying to understand exercise recommendations. And I feel like it's just as much of a show in perimenopause and menopause as it is in postpartum, like because when you have so much of the country that isn't active, period, and then there's like, okay, well, I am active, but am I enough? And I just looked at my medical record for my GYN the other day, and I was labeled as a heavy exerciser, exercising 4 or more times a week. And I was taken aback. I was like, it almost came across as like accusatory.
right, it
Like,
sounds like it.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
was like, almost like you're like a heavy smoker. And I was
right.
like, I don't see myself as a heavy exerciser. I actually think I don't exercise enough. I wish I had more time. There's more things I need. And I was like,
So
so
compared to the general population.
but again, like, and I feel like I'm hitting some of the right stuff. Like I run a couple times a week. I have my, CrossFit class where I do some lifting and some HIIT and stuff, but I still feel like it's not enough. But like the recommendations that are out there, like I'm still weeding through them. I don't know what's right. I don't know if people are like hating on zone 2. And I'm like, that's my happy place. So I don't kill my children. Like,
That's pretty key.
so I will get that all figured out by the time.
Right. By the time you hit the next stage in your
Right.
life.
Exactly. I'll pass back the notes, the cliff notes for you.
Yeah, please do, please do. Yeah,
I
I
don't
know, I
know.
feel like and it's so easy to get hung up on all the recommendations too, and
Yep.
it's like, we're all so different, like, what we can
Mhm.
handle, what we can do, or what makes
Yeah.
us feel good, what we
Right.
enjoy, like, all of
Yeah.
these things are so important too.
Exactly. But that again, that's one of the things that like for you, I've always like that's kind of like your brand, I would say, is you're like the Energizer bunny who's like doing leaping, push-ups and all sorts of crazy high jumps, and then just randomly will do seemingly randomly. I know it's not random that you're like, hey, let me just do a 50K.
Right. Well, actually, it was pretty random. I did one 10-mile trail run with a friend of mine
I
who lives in
remember you said that. You're like, I'm
yeah.
gonna do a 50K. I'm like, what?
Yes. And then as soon as I do the 50K, the very next day, my soon to be boss sends me a text and he's like, "Hey, there's a bunch of us going down to Mount Pisgah to run up a 23-mile trail race up the mountain." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Yes." I'm like hobbling out of this like cold plunge place. Like, it sounds like a great idea. So
You're that girl that's just not gonna say no. You're like, that sounds
I know. Yeah, he told me
good.
he was like, "Oh, you should do a 100-miler with us next week or next year." And I was like, "Oh, like I think I can do it. I need to slow my
That
roll."
too. I
Right.
think we
Well,
need to
should
club
I is the
you.
question.
I think you have the physical capability. I don't know if you have the time, but whatever.
Yeah,
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. The kids can feed themselves. It's fine.
exactly.
All right. On that note, at the end of every episode, we ask a couple of questions. And I don't know if you have time, but like, are you reading a book or listening to a podcast right now?
Yes, podcasts I listen to on runs. So
Okay.
I listen to you. I'm loving Between Two Coaches which
Oh,
is a
what's that?
great running. I'll have to send it to you.
Okay.
Amanda Katz, she is like Amanda Katz on Instagram.
Okay.
So funny. And then Nick Klastava, I think is how you pronounce his name. Just
Okay.
awesome duo, and they have a great running podcast that's geared towards like everybody. So I'll listen to, and there's a couple
Cool.
others that I listen to.
Okay.
And then books. I got into the ACOTAR series,
I don't know what that is.
A Court of Thorn and Roses. It's how I describe it to people. It's kind of like a mix of 50 Shades of Grey and Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
So it's totally different. Like last year I read like all of the running books that came out,
You're a
right?
little smutty. Well, there were some really good ones last year,
Oh
no
yeah.
lie. So
I
yeah.
was reading like
Yeah.
Goggins, and then I went to this like fantasy series, which I think I'm getting a little, I don't know. I think I'm done.
Okay.
That, and then also Brianna Wiest, The Pivot Year, which is literally just like you read a page a day. It's more like uplifting, motivational book.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm all over the place.
Cool. I like that though. I feel like you kind of have to do a little bit of everything. You can't just like all in one genre.
No, you need a little smut, a little motivation.
What do you watch Netflix or no?
Sometimes, not a ton.
What have you binged lately?
Oh, actually, not on Netflix, but you know what I did just watch on Apple TV?
Okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal was in it, and Presumed Innocent.
Okay.
It
Good.
was good.
Okay.
Yeah, it was quick. It was only one series, and there was maybe like 8 episodes or something.
Okay.
But it was good. If you like
Okay.
kind of like the mystery
Okay.
thriller type thing.
We just did a streaming cleanse, so I don't know if we have Apple anymore.
Well, I just tapped into my sisters. I don't. Schitt's Creek is by far my all-time favorite TV.
Always.
Always. I could
I
watch
love the
that.
Levies. They're just like a really funny family. So
I know.
yes.
Right.
Cool.
That's probably the last one before that.
Okay. Favorite activity since becoming a mom?
Outside of running and stuff? Does it have to be mom related?
No, absolutely not. It does not have to be child related.
I'm gonna go with ultra running.
Okay. New hobby.
Yes. Yeah, by far. Like road running,
Okay.
I could care less if I ever run another marathon on the
Are
road.
you gonna like up one day and move to like Portland or something? And
I
then
would love to do that.
I know. I feel like living on the East Coast, we don't have like I don't feel like we're legit.
No, I know. Like even like the trails, it was out. The 50K was at Millboro, Douthit
Mhm.
State Park, which was gorgeous. But I'm
Mhm.
sure out west they'd probably laugh at that. Like
I
it's
know. That's why I
just
just feel
different.
like we're just wannabes, but I know we're
Yeah,
not. I mean, we have some elevation gains, but like I do feel like we're wannabes for sure.
I
All
agree.
right. One piece of advice for moms.
Oof. Give yourself a lot of grace, and you don't have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
That,
what? Amount of times that I have asked that, I think, which has probably been close to like 150 times now. I think maybe twice I've gotten a different answer. It's always like some degree of like grace or patience or something like that. And I think it was probably a dude that no, maybe I didn't even ask that answer, ask that question.
you should. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it depends on that. Like some people I don't.
Depends on the guy.
It just depends on like time. And then also is that person like a good guess that we would get a really good answer or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I digress. Who's somebody in the postpartum space, or even running ultra? I don't care. Whatever you're paying attention to these days, who's somebody that we should know about that really has got your attention right now?
Oh, it's a good. I mean, I love your stuff. I'm gonna
You're
say
so
you.
sweet. Checks in the mail.
Yes. You didn't even pay me for that. No, seriously, because I feel like you put it out there in such a way that is just so relatable, and it doesn't make you feel bad. Like it's like the way that you do it, and with the sarcasm thrown in there, like
You're so sweet.
it speaks to me.
Double check and bonuses in the mail.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Love it. Well, again, like it's so funny. This whole like social media world again, as much as like we hate it and having to navigate it with my kids' school and they have to put their phones in pouches and stupid things like that. And my kids aren't on social. Like there's some really cool stuff that comes out of it and getting to know cool people and and having conversations like this. So Anyway, there's good parts to it.
There
All
is.
right.
I agree.
Last thing here. What does it mean to you to be an active mom?
Oh, everything. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like the base of who I am as a mom, and just getting my kids involved and like seeing their love, like just for movement, like it really means everything to me.
Yeah.
And it keeps me sane too. So, just as a side note.
Like if one day we don't hear anything.
Yes. It is not good.
Right? Oh my God. All right. If you want to follow the chaos, you can find
Yes,
Trish.
please do. Come to the dark side of the internet.
She's just a delight. Like there's some days where I'm like, okay, can't watch all the jumping today because I do not feel perky today. No, but there's other days like yesterday where you're like, and I think somebody wrote back, they're like, I feel like telling my kids to like F off or something like that. And you're like, yes, that was the answer I was looking for.
Because like everything was like so like, oh yeah, like give them an
No,
iPad.
lies. You are all lying.
Right. Yes. Your kids are the worst in that moment. Like that's what I want to hear.
It does not make you a bad person. Again, that's what I appreciate about you. And then like, you throw in like a dinner recipe. So I can appreciate that. So if you're looking for reality dinner recipes aside of pelvic floor, you can find her at Burpees and Birth Claws. I cannot say this. Why can I not say it? Burpees and Burp Claws
There you go.
on Instagram.
Good job, Carrie.
And remind me where you are in Virginia again, because I
Richmond.
In Richmond. So if you're in Richmond, she's going to be starting to see patients in person, which is awesome. So you'll get a great pelvic health PT who understands mom life as well. So check her out. Thank you so much. I feel like we could talk about so many things.
I know, we really could. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And I hope everybody sleeps tonight.
Thank you. Me too.
Did you enjoy the podcast? If so, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and tell a friend to do the same. Register now for the free on-demand postpartum mama masterclass, how to overcome the 3 most common return to run mistakes. You can skip to the good part and get back to running while missing these mistakes. Find this and more free resources under the patient section on carriepagliano.com. This podcast represents the opinions of Dr. Carrie Pagliano and her guests to the show. The content should not be taken as medical advice and is for entertainment purposes only. Always consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.